Everything. If you could wake up tomorrow just 1% better than you were today, more focused, more confident, more in control of your life. It doesn't sound like much, does it? Everything. Just 1%. But that's the secret most people overlook. Transformation isn't born from massive leaps. It's built from small, consistent wins stacked day after day. Everything. The difference between who you are now and who you could become isn't found in one grand moment of change. It's found in the quiet discipline of daily improvement. Everything. This audiobook is your guide to mastering that process, to building habits, mindsets, and systems that make growth automatic. Everything. Because when you commit to getting just 1% better each day, in a year you won't even recognize the person you've become. You'll be stronger, sharper, and unstoppable. Everything. Standing at the base of a mountain so tall that the peak disappears into the clouds. Most people, looking up at it, hesitate. They think about how far the top is. Everything. How exhausting the climb will be, how long it will take to get there. And then they turn back. But the few who make it to the summit don't focus on the peak. Everything. They focus on the next step, just one steady, deliberate step forward. That's the real secret to growth. It's not about giant leaps or dramatic breakthroughs. It's about small, everything. Consistent progress that compounds quietly over time until one day you look up and realize you've climbed higher than you ever imagined possible. Everything. That's what the 1% principle is all about. The idea that by improving yourself just 1% each day, everything, you create unstoppable momentum that transforms your life in ways you can't yet see. It's not flashy, it's not dramatic, but it's powerful beyond measure. Everything, because tiny improvements multiply like interest in a bank account. Every bit of effort you invest doesn't just add up. It compounds, creating exponential growth. Think about this, everything. If you got just 1% better every single day for an entire year, by the end of that year, you wouldn't be 365% better. You'd be almost 8 times better. Everything. That's the math of compounding. Most people underestimate it because the results don't show up right away. The first few weeks feel slow, almost invisible. But then, everything. The curve bends upward. Suddenly, the progress becomes undeniable. You feel sharper, stronger, more capable. And it all started with tiny, everything, almost unnoticeable changes that stacked up over time. Let's take a real-life example. Imagine two people starting at the same point. One decides to make a small positive change, say, everything, reading 10 pages a day or taking a short walk after dinner. The other says, it's not worth it. 10 pages won't make a difference. Fast forward 6 months. Everything. The first person has read several books and feels mentally sharper, maybe more motivated. The other is exactly where they were. A year later, everything. That gap becomes enormous. Not because one person did something extraordinary, but because one person stayed consistent with something small. That's the quiet, everything. Invisible power of small wins. The reason most people never reach their potential is because they chase dramatic transformation. They want instant results. Everything. They want to go from zero to hero overnight. But that's not how real progress works. Real growth is subtle, often unglamorous. It's waking up early when you don't feel like it. Everything. It's choosing the healthy meal when it would be easier not to. It's reading instead of scrolling, journaling instead of complaining, showing up when no one's watching. Everything. Each act feels insignificant in the moment, but together they form the foundation of lasting success. Here's the truth: success is rarely a lightning strike. It's more like sunrise. Everything. It happens slowly, gradually, and if you're not paying attention, you almost miss it, until one day, the light is everywhere, and you can't believe how far you've come. Now, everything. Think about your own life. Think about something you've wanted to change for a long time. Maybe it's your health, your mindset, your career, or your relationships. Everything. You've probably had bursts of motivation before, those moments when you promised yourself that this time would be different. You started strong, made big plans, everything. Maybe even saw a bit of progress. But then, somewhere along the way, life happened. The excitement faded, old habits crept back in, and you found yourself starting over again. Everything. That's because motivation alone can't sustain you. But small, consistent actions, those can. They're the difference between temporary effort and permanent transformation. Everything. Consider the story of James, a young professional who felt stuck in his career. He wanted to move up, but he didn't know where to start. Everything. He'd tried setting big goals before. Get promoted this year, earn more money, be more productive. But every time, he would lose steam after a few weeks. So instead, he decided to focus on just one small improvement a day. He committed to learning something new for 10 minutes every morning before work. Some days, it was a podcast. Other days, a short article. At first, it felt like nothing was changing. But a few months later, his thinking had expanded. His conversations with his boss became more insightful. He started taking initiative at work, and within a year, he got the promotion he'd been chasing for years. That's the compounding effect in motion. Small wins create momentum, and momentum is the most valuable force in self-improvement. Once you start stacking wins, no matter how small, your confidence grows. You begin to trust yourself, You stop questioning whether you can do it, because you have evidence that you're already doing it. That's how discipline is born. Not through willpower alone, but through self-trust earned from consistent effort. The beautiful thing about small wins is that they're sustainable. Anyone can push hard for a week, But the person who quietly commits to small, steady progress every day builds habits that last for life. You don't burn out because you're not relying on bursts of energy, You're building systems that work even when you're tired, even when you're unmotivated. There's a reason elite athletes, top entrepreneurs, and great artists all talk about the power of daily habits. They know the truth. Excellence isn't one big act. It's a series of small, deliberate choices repeated over time. Serena Williams didn't become a legend from one tournament. She built her greatness through thousands of hours of small, intentional practice. The same principle applies to your life. You don't need to reinvent yourself overnight. You just need to commit to improving one area, one skill, one habit, one behavior, by 1% today. Think of your life like a series of bricks. Each action you take, each decision you make is another brick laid in the foundation of who you're becoming. One brick might not look like much, but keep stacking them, and one day, you'll stand inside a structure of strength, confidence, and character that you built with your own hands. So how do you start? Begin with awareness. Ask yourself, where am I right now? What's one area that, if I improved it slightly, would make the biggest difference in my life? Maybe it's waking up 15 minutes earlier. Maybe it's drinking more water. Maybe it's being kinder to yourself when you fail. Pick something small, so small that you can't make an excuse not to do it. And then, do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need to overhaul your entire life. The perfect moment is now. The next small step you take is the one that counts. Because what you do today compounds. Every small action either adds to your growth or subtracts from it. There's no neutral. Every choice, every moment, is a deposit or a withdrawal from your future self's potential. Picture yourself 1 year from now. Imagine waking up every morning knowing that for the past 365 days, you've honored your commitment to getting just a little better every day. You've built habits that align with your goals. You've shown yourself that consistency is stronger than chaos. That version of you exists. It's not a fantasy. It's the inevitable result of the small wins you choose to stack starting today. There's a quiet pride that comes from knowing you didn't give up. That you didn't wait for motivation or inspiration to show up. You just kept going. You kept improving by 1%. You trusted the process. That pride, that internal strength, is something no one can give you and no one can take away. So when you find yourself doubting, when progress feels slow or invisible, remember this: every step counts. Every effort matters. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides beneath the surface until one day it bursts through. And everyone else calls it overnight success. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't overnight. It was built one quiet, consistent day at a time. That's the compound power of small wins, the slow, steady magic that turns ordinary days into extraordinary results. And it all begins with a single choice, the choice to get just 1% better today. You've probably heard the phrase, change your thoughts, change your life. It sounds simple, almost cliché. But behind those 5 words lies one of the most profound truths about human potential. Every action you take, every decision you make, every habit you form, starts first as a thought. What you think repeatedly becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes the script your subconscious mind follows without question. So if you want to grow, if you want to break old patterns and build new ones, you have to start at the source. You have to reprogram your mind. Everything. Most people try to change their lives by changing their external circumstances. They switch jobs, move cities, end relationships, buy new things. Everything. And while those changes can create temporary shifts, they don't create transformation. Because no matter where you go, your mind goes with you. Everything. You can't escape your internal programming by rearranging your external world. Real growth begins when you stop running from your thoughts and start rewiring them. Everything. Think of your mind as a garden. Every day, you're planting seeds through the thoughts you allow to take root. Some are seeds of possibility. Everything. I can learn this. I can grow. I can handle challenges. Others are seeds of limitation. Everything. I'm not good enough. I always mess things up. People like me never succeed. Over time, those seeds sprout and grow into the emotional landscape you live in. Everything. The tricky part. Most of this planting happens unconsciously. You don't even realize what's being sown. The news you watch, the people you talk to, everything. The words you repeat to yourself. All of it shapes the garden of your subconscious. If you've ever wondered why certain patterns keep repeating in your life, this is why. Everything. The subconscious doesn't care whether the belief is true or false, healthy or destructive. It simply acts on whatever programming it's given. Everything. That's why someone can consciously want success but subconsciously sabotage it. They may say, I want to grow, but deep down, a hidden belief whispers, everything. I don't deserve it. And the subconscious always wins because it's the part of the mind that runs the show when you're not consciously paying attention. Everything. The good news is that this programming isn't permanent. Just like software, it can be rewritten. The human brain is not fixed. It's neuroplastic. Everything. It adapts and rewires itself based on what you repeatedly do and think. That means every thought, every emotion, every visualization is like a coding command sent to your subconscious. Everything. The question is, what are you programming it with? Let's look at a real-life example. Imagine someone who's always struggled with confidence. Maybe, as a child, everything. They were told they were shy or they were criticized whenever they spoke up. Over time, those moments etched themselves into their identity. Now, as an adult, everything. Whenever they walk into a room full of people, their body tenses, their heart races, and their inner voice says, everything. You don't belong here. They might even convince themselves that's just who they are. An introvert, someone who's not good at socializing. But that's not their personality. Everything. It's their programming. Reprogramming starts with awareness. You can't change what you don't notice. Start by observing your automatic thoughts. Catch the moments when you shrink back. Everything. When you tell yourself, I can't. When you expect failure before you even begin. Don't judge those thoughts. Just recognize them. Everything. Awareness is like shining a flashlight in a dark room. Once you see the old patterns clearly, they begin to lose their power. The next step is replacement. Everything. You can't simply erase old beliefs. You have to overwrite them with new, stronger ones. This isn't about fake positivity or repeating empty affirmations. Everything. It's about aligning yourself. Talk with the identity you want to build. For example, instead of saying, I'm terrible at speaking, say, everything. I'm learning to express myself more confidently. Instead of, I'm not disciplined, say, everything. I'm becoming more consistent each day. Notice the subtle shift. It acknowledges where you are while reinforcing progress. Everything. The subconscious mind responds best to repetition and emotion. The more you repeat empowering thoughts with genuine feeling, the faster they take root. Everything. There's a famous study about piano players that perfectly illustrates this. Scientists observed two groups of people. One physically practiced piano every day, everything, and the other only visualized themselves practicing after several weeks, everything. Brain scans revealed that both groups had developed nearly identical neural patterns in the regions responsible for hand movement, everything. The mind couldn't tell the difference between physical practice and vivid mental rehearsal. That's the power of focused thought. It literally changes your brain's wiring, everything. So when you visualize yourself succeeding, when you see it, feel it, and believe it, you're not daydreaming. You're building neural pathways that make success familiar, everything. And what feels familiar becomes achievable. That's why elite athletes spend hours visualizing their performance before stepping on the field, everything. They're training their subconscious to expect victory. But here's the part most people miss: reprogramming isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice, everything. Just as your body needs consistent exercise to stay fit, your mind needs consistent conditioning to stay sharp and empowered. Every morning, everything. Before your phone or your emails flood your mind with noise, take 5 minutes to program your thoughts intentionally. Write down 3 beliefs you want to strengthen. Say them out loud. Everything. Feel them as if they're already true. Something as simple as, I am disciplined, I am focused, I am in control of my growth. Over time, everything. Those statements stop feeling like wishful thinking and start feeling like identity. And identity is the ultimate key. Because you will always act in alignment with who you believe you are. Everything. If you see yourself as inconsistent, you'll find ways to prove it. But if you begin to see yourself as someone who grows daily, your actions will follow. Identity shapes behavior, everything. And behavior reinforces identity. It's a cycle you can consciously redesign. Of course, reprogramming also means letting go of the past. Some of your mental habits aren't even yours, everything. They were inherited. Maybe you grew up hearing people say that success is only for the lucky, or that failure is something to be ashamed of, everything. Those voices still echo in your subconscious today. The way forward isn't to hate those beliefs, it's to outgrow them. You acknowledge they existed, everything. You thank them for whatever protection they offered, and then you release them. Growth often means saying goodbye to the version of yourself that survived instead of thrived. Everything. Let me give you a powerful exercise. Think of one belief that's been holding you back. Something you say to yourself when you're afraid to take action. Everything. Maybe it's, I'm not ready, or I always quit. Write that belief on a piece of paper. Then, write the opposite version right beneath it. Something empowering and truthful. Everything, like, I am ready to start learning, or I finish what I begin. Every time that old thought appears, remind yourself of the new one. Don't expect the shift overnight. Everything. It's a gradual rewiring process. But one day, you'll catch yourself responding differently. Not because you forced it, but because you became someone new. Everything. Think about how many great things in your life started as nothing more than an idea. The job you pursued, the relationships you built, everything. The goals you've achieved, they all began in your mind before they ever existed in reality. The same rule applies to who you're becoming. Everything. You must think like the person you want to be long before you see the evidence. That's not pretending. That's training your brain to lead your life instead of follow it. Everything. As you do this work, you'll notice something shift. The things that once felt impossible will start feeling normal. The people who used to intimidate you will feel like equals. Everything. The habits that once drained you will lose their grip, because when your mind changes, your world rearranges to match it. Reality becomes a reflection of your dominant thoughts. And remember, everything. The mind doesn't reprogram through occasional effort. It transforms through daily repetition. Each time you choose a better thought, each time you act on growth instead of fear, everything. You're teaching your subconscious a new way of being. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, your internal wiring starts to change. And one day, without even realizing it, everything. You'll find yourself thinking, speaking, and acting like the person you always wanted to become. This is where true growth begins. Not in the external world, everything, but in the invisible space between your thoughts. You are not a prisoner of your past patterns. You are the architect of your future identity, everything. And every time you choose a thought that aligns with your highest potential, you lay another brick in the foundation of the life you're building, everything. That's the quiet power of reprogramming your mind. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, but it's unstoppable. Because once your mind believes something, everything, your entire life starts moving to make it real. There comes a point in every person's growth where motivation just isn't enough anymore. Everything. You've probably felt it yourself. Those days when you wake up ready to conquer the world, and the next day, you can barely convince yourself to get out of bed. Motivation is powerful, everything. But it's unstable. It comes and goes like the weather. The people who truly succeed in life don't rely on motivation. They rely on systems, habits, routines, everything, and structures that keep them moving forward even when the spark fades. That's what separates those who dream from those who do. If you think about it, everything, almost every part of your life is already shaped by systems. Some intentional, most unconscious. The time you wake up, what you eat, how you scroll your phone in the morning, everything. Even the way you respond to stress. These are systems in action. The problem is, many of them aren't designed by you. They form through convenience, repetition, and comfort. Everything. So if you want to change your life, the goal isn't just to push harder or want it more. The goal is to design better systems, to make your routines work for you instead of against you. Everything. Let's start with something simple. Imagine two people who both decide they want to get fit. The first person says, "I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week." They feel fired up. Everything. They set an alarm and they crush the first few days. Then the weekend hits, they feel tired. Life gets busy. The motivation fades. The second person takes a different approach. Everything. They create a system. They put their workout clothes next to their bed every night, schedule their workouts right after work so there's no decision to make. Everything. And prepare their post-workout meal in advance. When the alarm goes off, they don't think. They just follow the system. Which one do you think will still be training 6 months from now? Everything. That's the magic of systems. They eliminate the need for constant decision-making. They remove friction, those little points of resistance that make it easy to say, everything. I'll do it later. When your environment, your schedule, and your habits are set up to support your goals, success becomes automatic. You don't have to fight yourself anymore. Everything. You just follow the path you've already built. The question is, how do you build a system that actually works for you? It starts with awareness. Everything. You can't improve what you don't understand, so take a close look at your day. Every hour, every routine, every behavior. Ask yourself, where do I lose momentum? Everything. Where does my energy drop? What triggers me to waste time? You might realize that you lose 30 minutes scrolling social media after breakfast. Everything. Or that your evenings disappear into mindless TV. Don't judge it. Just notice it, because awareness is the foundation of change. Once you see your patterns, you can start reshaping them. Everything. One of the most powerful ways to build momentum is through something called habit stacking. Everything. It's a method where you attach a new habit to an existing one so that your brain links them together. For example, if you already make coffee every morning, everything, you can use that moment to add a new behavior, like journaling for 2 minutes or reviewing your priorities for the day. Everything. The habit of making coffee becomes the trigger for your next habit. Over time, this stack grows stronger, and your new routines become as natural as brushing your teeth. Everything. You can do this in every area of your life. If you want to read more, place a book on your pillow so you see it before bed. If you want to practice gratitude, everything. Make it a rule to think of one thing you're thankful for while brushing your teeth. The goal isn't to completely overhaul your life overnight. It's to make small, everything, strategic adjustments that compound over time. That's how systems work, quietly, consistently, until one day the results are impossible to ignore. Everything. But there's another piece to this puzzle, your environment. Most people underestimate how much their surroundings influence their behavior. If your workspace is cluttered, everything, your mind feels scattered. If your kitchen is filled with junk food, your diet will reflect it. Willpower is weak compared to environment design. Everything. So instead of trying to resist temptation every day, set up your space to remove it entirely. Make the good choice the easy choice. Keep your goals visible. Keep distractions out of sight. Everything. You'll be amazed how much easier discipline becomes when your surroundings support your intentions. Think about a musician who practices every day. Everything. They don't need to convince themselves to play. The instrument is always right there, waiting. The system is in place. Everything. Or consider a writer who writes a page each morning before checking their phone. They don't rely on inspiration. Their routine does the heavy lifting. Every professional, athletes, everything, artists, entrepreneurs, they all depend on systems. Talent and motivation get you started, but structure keeps you going when everything else runs out. Everything. The key to mastering your system is simplicity. If your routine feels heavy, complex, or exhausting, it won't last. Start small. Build slowly. Everything. Make your habits so easy in the beginning that you can't fail. If your goal is to start exercising, begin with 5 minutes. If your goal is to eat healthy, everything, start by fixing just 1 meal a day. The point is to create momentum, because momentum is the engine of consistency. Once you're moving, it becomes easier to stay in motion. Everything. There's a story about a man who wanted to quit smoking. Instead of saying, "I'll never smoke again," he created a system. Every time he had a craving, he would wait 5 minutes. Everything. That was his rule. Over time, those 5 minutes grew into 10, then 15, and eventually the cravings passed entirely. His success didn't come from a single moment of strength. Everything. It came from a small, structured rule that gave him control. That's what systems do. They give you leverage over your own behavior. Now, everything. Let's talk about time mastery. Because your system is only as strong as your relationship with time. The truth is, you'll never find time, you have to make it. Everything. Successful people aren't busier than everyone else. They're just more intentional with how they use their hours. Try looking at your day as a series of energy blocks. Everything. There are times when you're sharp, focused, and creative, and times when you're drained or distracted. Align your most important tasks with your highest energy hours, everything, and automate or delegate the rest. That single shift can multiply your productivity without adding stress. Everything. And don't underestimate the power of routines around transitions, the moments when you shift from one part of your day to another. A short morning ritual to set your focus. Everything. A midday reset to recenter, or an evening wind down to disconnect. These little checkpoints anchor your system. They help you move through the day with intention instead of reaction. Everything. Because when you control your transitions, you control your energy. One of the biggest traps people fall into is trying to rely on willpower. Everything. Willpower is like a battery. It drains quickly. Systems are like a generator. They keep you powered indefinitely. Everything. So if you're constantly battling yourself to do what you said you would, it's not because you're weak. It's because you don't have the right structure in place. Everything. Don't aim for more discipline. Aim for smarter systems that make discipline unnecessary. When I think about the people who've achieved incredible things, not overnight success, everything, but lasting excellence, they all share one trait: consistency through structure. A marathon runner doesn't wake up and decide if they feel like training. Everything. A business leader doesn't plan their day on the fly. Their systems are set. They've built a life that supports their goals, not one that fights against them. And here's the truth. Everything. Your systems are a reflection of your standards. Every habit, every routine, every pattern, they tell a story about what you expect from yourself. Everything. If your system is built on procrastination, distraction, and emotional decisions, your results will mirror that. But if your system is built on clarity, preparation, and purpose, everything, your life will evolve in that direction. So the next time you find yourself saying, "I need to be more disciplined," stop. Instead, ask, everything. What system can I create so I don't need to rely on discipline? Maybe it's setting your gym bag by the door. Maybe it's blocking your social media apps after 9 p.m. Everything. Maybe it's writing tomorrow's priorities before you go to bed. The specifics don't matter as much as the consistency. Every system you build is a brick in the foundation of your future. Everything. There's freedom in structure, not restriction, but liberation. Because when your habits take care of the basics, your mind is free to focus on growth. Everything. You don't have to wrestle with indecision every day. You don't have to fight yourself to stay on track. The system carries you. Everything. It becomes the invisible framework that keeps your life moving forward 1% at a time. And one day, everything. You'll look back and realize that all those little systems, the ones that seemed small or unimportant, they were the silent engines behind your transformation. Everything. You won't remember every motivational quote or every burst of inspiration, but you'll remember the feeling of progress becoming your default state. Everything. That's when you know you've built something unbreakable, not just a routine, but a rhythm that makes success your natural way of living. Everything. There's a moment that comes for everyone who's trying to change their life. The moment when you simply don't feel like it. You don't feel like going to the gym. Everything. You don't feel like sitting down to write, to study, to work, to stretch, to learn. Your mind starts negotiating with you, whispering excuses that sound perfectly reasonable. Everything. You've done enough today. You're tired. You deserve a break. It's in those moments that discipline steps forward and reveals who you really are. Everything. Because motivation might get you started, but discipline keeps you going when every part of you wants to quit. The truth is, no one wakes up feeling unstoppable every single day. Everything. Even the most successful people in the world, the athletes, the artists, the entrepreneurs, the leaders, they all face days when they'd rather do anything but the work. Everything. But the difference between them and everyone else is that they show up anyway. They've trained themselves to act, not based on emotion, but on commitment. Everything. Discipline is not about feeling good all the time. It's about doing what's right, even when it's uncomfortable. Think about someone training for a marathon. Everything. The first few days are exciting. New shoes, a fresh routine, a clear goal. But by the third week, the early morning alarms start to feel heavier, the soreness kicks in, the novelty fades. Everything. That's when most people stop. They tell themselves they'll start again next week, when things calm down, when they feel more motivated. But the truth is, everything. That feeling never comes on its own. It's discipline that wakes you up, ties your laces, and gets you out the door. Everything. It's discipline that reminds you that your goals don't care how you feel today. They only respond to what you do. Discipline is the bridge between intention and result. Everything. It's the invisible force that turns promises into progress. Without it, every dream remains just that, a dream. We often romanticize motivation. Everything. Imagining it as this endless source of fire that keeps us moving forward. But motivation is fleeting. It's like weather. Some days it's sunny and you feel unstoppable. Everything. Other days it's cloudy and cold and you can barely find the energy to begin. Discipline is your shelter through all of it. Everything. It's the structure that doesn't depend on how the sky looks that day. There's a quiet strength that grows in those who learn to act without waiting for the perfect mood. Everything. When you push through resistance, you build something far more powerful than excitement. You build trust in yourself. Every time you keep a promise you made to yourself. Everything. You strengthen your inner foundation. You prove to your own mind that you're someone who follows through, no matter what. Everything. That's the kind of confidence no one can give you. You earn it through consistency, through the days when it's hardest to show up. You see, everything. Discipline is not about being harsh or robotic. It's not about grinding endlessly without rest. It's about alignment. Everything. It's about keeping your actions consistent with your higher purpose. When you truly understand why you're doing something, discipline becomes an act of self-respect. Everything. You stop viewing it as punishment and start seeing it as a form of freedom. The freedom to create the life you want on your terms. Think back to any meaningful achievement in your life. Everything. Maybe you learned a skill, earned a degree, built a business, or transformed your health. No matter what it was, there were days you didn't feel like continuing, yet you did. Everything. That's the thread that runs through every success story, persistence through resistance. The most accomplished people aren't necessarily the most talented or gifted. Everything. They're the ones who kept showing up when others didn't. There's a story of a writer who made a deal with himself. He would write at least one page every single day. Everything, no matter how he felt. Some days he wrote 20 pages. Other days he barely managed a paragraph. But he never missed a day. A year later, everything. He had a finished manuscript, the result of small, disciplined actions that built up day after day. When asked how he stayed so consistent, he said something simple. Everything. I don't wait to feel inspired. I just sit down and I start. Inspiration often follows action, not the other way around. Everything. That's the secret most people miss. Motion creates motivation. Once you take the first step, momentum starts to build. The hardest part is simply beginning. Everything. Think of how heavy it feels to start cleaning a messy room. You stare at it, dreading the effort it'll take. But once you pick up one item, then another, suddenly you're moving. Everything. You start to feel lighter. The same principle applies to your goals. The more you act, the more energy you create. Discipline is the key that unlocks that first movement. Everything. But there's another side to discipline that's rarely talked about. The emotional resilience it builds. Life will test you. You'll face setbacks, failures, distractions, everything, and self-doubt. Motivation can't carry you through those storms, but discipline can. It gives you a sense of control when everything else feels uncertain. It reminds you that everything. No matter how chaotic the world becomes, you can always control your actions, your choices, your effort. That's true power, knowing that you can rely on yourself. Everything. Imagine standing at a crossroads. One path is comfort, the other is growth. Comfort feels easier. It's warm, familiar, and safe. Growth is uncertain, sometimes painful. Everything. But it's where transformation happens. Every day you make that choice. Discipline is the quiet voice that says, take the harder path. It's worth it. It doesn't shout everything. It whispers, and you have to listen closely. Now let's make this practical. How do you strengthen your discipline muscle? First, start small. Everything. Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight. Pick one area, one small promise you can keep daily. Maybe it's waking up 10 minutes earlier, or reading 5 pages of a book. Everything. Or doing 10 push-ups. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you follow through. That tiny act of self-control builds momentum. Everything. You're not just building a habit, you're building identity. Each time you keep your word, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Second, remove unnecessary decisions. Everything. Willpower is limited and discipline thrives in structure. If you have to make too many choices throughout the day, fatigue sets in. Everything. Plan your environment so that good choices become automatic. Lay out your clothes the night before. Set your workout gear by the door. Turn off notifications during focus hours. Everything. Make the disciplined path the easy one, and the undisciplined path the hard one. Third, separate emotion from execution. You don't need to feel like it to do it. Everything. Your emotions are visitors. They come and go. But your purpose should be permanent. Everything. When you catch yourself waiting for the right mood, remind yourself that action changes mood faster than mood creates action. Start before you feel ready. Everything. The readiness will come once you're in motion. Fourth, forgive yourself when you slip, but don't stop. Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about getting back up quickly. Everything. Everyone misses a day. Everyone loses focus sometimes. The danger isn't in failure, it's in letting guilt turn one missed day into a missed week. The faster you return to your routine, everything, the stronger your discipline becomes. Consistency isn't about never falling. It's about never staying down. Everything. There's something deeply empowering about realizing that your future depends on what you repeatedly do, not on how you occasionally feel. Everything. Every disciplined act is a declaration that you are in charge. Not your excuses, not your comfort zone, not your fleeting moods. You become your own authority. Everything. That's the edge discipline gives you. The ability to rise above emotion and act in service of your vision. Picture this: a cold, dark morning. The alarm goes off. Your bed is warm. Everything. Your mind says, 5 more minutes, but you remember your promise, that quiet pact you made with yourself to become better. You sit up, you stand, you move. That single act, everything. Though small, changes everything. Because in that moment, you prove to yourself that you can be trusted. You are no longer driven by comfort, you're guided by commitment. Everything. The people who achieve extraordinary results are not extraordinary by nature. They simply mastered ordinary actions done with consistency. Everything. Discipline turns those small actions into unstoppable momentum. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes part of who you are. It becomes automatic. Everything. You no longer struggle to push yourself. You're pulled by purpose. When you do it even when you don't feel like it, you are rewriting your identity. Everything. You're no longer the person who waits for perfect conditions. You're the person who creates them. You're no longer at the mercy of mood. You're driven by mission. Everything. And that quiet, steady power is what separates dreamers from doers. Standing a year from now, looking in the mirror, everything, and realizing you've become someone entirely different. Not because you made one massive change, but because you committed to improving just a little every single day. Everything. You wake up earlier without fighting yourself. Your thoughts are sharper, calmer. You handle challenges that once scared you with ease. Everything. The people around you notice it too. Not in some dramatic overnight transformation, but in the quiet confidence that comes from becoming someone who keeps promises to themselves. Everything. That's the essence of becoming the 365% version of yourself, the person you build brick by brick, habit by habit, day by day. The truth is, everything. Most people never get to meet that version of themselves. They chase big bursts of motivation, jump from goal to goal, and wonder why they always end up back where they started. Everything. But growth doesn't happen in explosions. It happens in layers. Every day you make a choice to rise a little higher or stay where you are. And when you choose to rise, everything, even just 1%, you begin an invisible process. One that compounds quietly but powerfully over time. Think of it like interest in a bank account. Everything. If you deposit a small amount daily, it doesn't seem like much at first. But with consistency, the compounding begins to take over. One day, everything. That small effort becomes a force that works for you instead of against you. The same is true with personal growth. Each tiny improvement multiplies your capacity to improve more. Everything. You start reading a few pages a day, and soon you're devouring books. You start walking 10 minutes a morning, and before long, you're running miles. Everything. It's not the action that changes you. It's the identity that forms through repetition. You stop being someone who tries, and you become someone who does. Everything. There's something deeply powerful about realizing that who you are today is not fixed. Your habits are not your destiny. Everything. They are simply patterns you've repeated long enough to believe they define you. But the 365% version of you, that future self, is already waiting. Everything. They exist on the other side of 1,000 small decisions you haven't made yet. Each time you choose growth, you take a step toward them. Each time you stay consistent, everything, you shorten the distance between who you are and who you could be. Picture this: you wake up tomorrow and decide to improve just one small area of your life. Everything. Maybe you start your morning with gratitude instead of scrolling through your phone. That single change might seem insignificant, everything, but it sets a tone, a quiet signal to your mind that you're in charge. On day 1, it's easy to overlook. On day 10, it's a pattern. On day 100, it's part of who you are. Everything. That's how transformation works, not through massive action, but through quiet ownership repeated enough times to become identity. Now, everything. Think about what happens when those small wins start to accumulate. You begin to trust yourself. Confidence doesn't come from hype or pep talks. It comes from evidence. Everything. When you keep your word to yourself, when you say, "I'll do this," and actually follow through, something inside you shifts. Everything. You start believing that you are capable of more, not because someone told you, but because you proved it. And that belief is what propels you forward when motivation fades. Everything. There's a story of a man who decided to write just one page every day. He wasn't an author. He didn't have a plan. He just made a promise to himself to write one page. Everything, no matter what. At first, it felt pointless, but after a few months, he had a stack of pages. After a year, he had a finished book. Everything. What started as one page turned into a lifelong passion and career. His success wasn't born from intensity. It was born from consistency. You see, the magic isn't in doing more, everything. It's in doing what matters repeatedly. Most people underestimate what they can achieve in a year because they overestimate what they can do in a day. They want instant results, everything. They want to see progress now. But real growth doesn't always show up immediately. It hides in the effort, in the unseen repetitions, in the choices that feel small but matter immensely. Everything. The 365% version of yourself is shaped in silence, in the moments no one sees, when it's just you versus your excuses. Let's make this practical. Everything. Imagine if you decided to improve 1% each day in 5 key areas: your health, your mindset, your relationships, your focus, and your discipline. Each day, everything. You'd only need to make tiny upgrades. Maybe a healthier meal, a few pages of a good book, a kind message to someone you care about, a few minutes of focused work without distraction. Everything. And one decision where you choose discipline over comfort. None of those things are huge, but stack them together for 365 days. Everything. And your life wouldn't just look different, it would feel different. Your body would have more energy. Your mind would be calmer and sharper. Your relationships would deepen. Everything. Your work would improve. And most importantly, your sense of self-worth would expand. Because every small action whispers the same message: I am improving. Everything. And that's the most powerful affirmation you can ever live by. But let's be honest. There will be days when you don't feel like improving. Days when life hits hard. Everything. Motivation disappears, and everything feels pointless. Those are the days that define you. Anyone can make progress when it's easy. True growth happens when it's not. Everything. The 365% version of you doesn't quit on tough days. They adjust. Maybe you can't give 100% today, but you can give 1%, and that 1% keeps the momentum alive. Everything. That's what separates the disciplined from the disappointed. They keep the flame burning even when it's small. You have to remember, discipline is not punishment. Everything. It's a form of self-respect. Every time you follow through, you're telling yourself, I'm worth the effort. And that changes everything. It shifts the way you see challenges. Everything. You stop dreading them, and you start appreciating them as training grounds for strength. You stop seeing failure as a dead end and start seeing it as feedback. Everything. Every setback becomes data. Information that helps you adjust your course and come back stronger. Think about a sculptor working on a block of marble. Every day. Everything. They chip away a little more, refining the shape, smoothing the edges. To an outsider, it looks repetitive, maybe even boring. Everything. But the sculptor knows that each strike of the chisel reveals a new layer of beauty underneath. That's what you're doing when you improve 1% daily. You're sculpting yourself. Everything. Each decision, each habit, each small act of effort is a chisel strike, removing what no longer serves you and revealing the best version of who you already are. Everything. And here's something beautiful: as you evolve, your world evolves with you. The people you attract, the opportunities that appear, everything, the energy you give and receive, all begin to reflect your inner growth. The 365% version of you doesn't just live differently, they vibrate differently. Everything. They no longer chase approval or validation because they've built a deep trust in themselves. They understand that progress is personal. It's not about being better than others, everything, it's about being better than yesterday. You begin to notice how the world responds differently to someone who moves with purpose. Doors open. Conversations shift. Everything. People sense the energy of someone who's committed to growth. You inspire others without even trying. Not because you preach it, but because you live it. Your life becomes the message. Everything. So ask yourself right now, who is the 365% version of me? How do they think, speak, act, and live? Visualize that person vividly. See how they carry themselves. Everything. How they respond to challenges, how they walk into a room with quiet confidence. That version of you isn't imaginary, it's in progress. Everything. They're being built in every small choice you make. You don't need to have everything figured out. You just need to commit to showing up. Everything. Improvement is not a destination. It's a rhythm, a lifestyle. The person you are becoming is already forming beneath the surface, one small step at a time. So, keep going. Everything. Keep choosing growth over comfort. Keep collecting those invisible victories that no one else sees but you. Because a year from now, when you look back, you'll realize something profound. Everything. You didn't just become a little better. You became unrecognizable, unstoppable, unshakable. You became the 365% version of yourself, not through luck, not through chance, everything, but through daily, deliberate evolution. And that version of you, they were always there, waiting for you to begin.